Flamio Hotman, February 22nd, and the release of Netflix Avatar The Last Airbender live action isn't far away now. As we move into the new year, I thought it would be good to recap on everything we know about Netflix Avatar The Last Airbender. Thanks to the teaser trailer and a bunch of shared pictures and interviews, we now know a fair amount about this live action series, so I thought I'd break down everything we now know in this video and show you things that maybe you didn't know or remind you of things that maybe you've forgotten about. Before I get started, can I just wish you all a very happy new year. Thanks for all the support you've given me in helping me grow my channel this year. I really appreciate the support. So back to this video. I'll cover 3 sections of everything we know: the cast, the settings and the visuals, and finally the episode list and the story that we know about. Let's start with the cast though. This is the first image we can look at. Obviously this is Team Avatar. You can see Sokka, Katara and Aang in full costume. There have been some mixed feelings over the individual images of each of these characters that have been released. I think it's fair to say in some of the shots, yes, they do look a little bit cosplay-like because the costumes look so clean. But when you look at them in the trailer and you look at some of the other screenshots that have now been shared, I think the Team Avatar casting looks really good and the costumes just have way more detail than the animation. We also have still images of Zuko, Philor Dozai and Uncle Iroh. Again, I think they all look really good, and we get to see what they look like in the teaser trailer in action as well. You can kind of see Zuko and Iroh already have that really strong bond that we would expect, and I liked how aggressive and angry Zuko seemed because we know in season 1 of the original animation, Zuko was kind of an angry character. We do get a look at Azula as well. You kind of get hints of Azula's vibe from the still image, but when I first saw it, I thought she's maybe not as evil looking as she needed to be. But then when you see her in the teaser trailer, it's only a split second, but that look she gives, those definitely gave me Azula vibes. Let's look at some of the other supporting cast because they did recently reveal some images of what the supporting cast look like. This is what Commander Zhao looks like. From this look, I feel like they're maybe going for a slightly less imposing Zhao like he was in the animated version, and instead they're going for more of a scheming Zhao, which, to be fair, his character certainly has scope for. We also got a look at Gran. They've done a pretty good job here in my own personal opinion. She's maybe a little bit taller than you would think of Gran, but visually, certainly around the face and how they've aged her, I feel like she's the perfect looking live action Gran. There is a new character in Netflix live action Avatar The Last Airbender. She's called Yukari, who you can see here next to Suki. Yukari is Suki's mother and the mayor of Kyoshi Island. You also get a look at Suki there. Here's another look at Suki. There are some visuals of Suki where I feel maybe it's a little bit cosplay-like, but there are also some really good visuals in these images, especially when she's standing next to her mother, where you think, actually, yeah, she does look like Suki. Another character we get to look at is the Mechanist from the Northern Air Temple episode. So we know at some point they do go to the Northern Air Temple and they'll meet Teo as well as the Mechanist. Another cool character we got to look at is Jet. Obviously the full Jet and the Freedom Fighter crew have been cast, but when we look at Jet here specifically, I think he's a really accurate casting. After Jet, we've also got a look at June, who's played by Arden Cho. Again, just like Jet, I feel like June is so accurate here in terms of live action versus the animation. And you also get a little glimpse of her Shirashu, Nyla, in this image. You can kind of just see the top of her. Speaking of animals, we did see Momo in the teaser trailer as well. Momo looks super cute, just like you would want. And we also got to see Upper. He's big, he's furry, and he's cuddly looking. Again, just like you would want Upper to be in a live action series. Oh yeah, one other animal we did see was the Fire Nation messenger hawk. In terms of the spirits, you can see the Heibai spirit statue in the background of this image here with Aang. We also know Wan Shi Tong and Ko the Face Stealer will be making an appearance, although we don't have any live action visuals for them just yet. So that's the main part of the cast. Let's move on to talking about background visuals and the settings. I think there's some really good shots we can look at in terms of the background settings. Now for sure there are some clear views of what I believe is the Southern Water Tribe. You can see the icy glacier, which is the setting for where Sokka and Katara find Aang. There also looks to be the background of the Southern Water Tribe defenses in this shot with Sokka. We do get a shot of the Southern Air Temple, and if I'm looking at it correctly, I believe we see 2 versions of it. The first version we see is early on in the teaser trailer. I believe this is where the Fire Nation is actually attacking the Southern Air Temple, so this is like likely to be at the start of the war, and then we get a glimpse of it 100 years later after Aang, Katara and Sokka visit it, and you can kind of see them flying away from the Southern Air Temple. The next setting we got to look at, and this is one of my favourites, a marshu. Honestly, I think it looks so good. If I had to imagine a live action version of the animated Amashu, in all honesty, I'd probably be imagining something just like this. They've even nailed the opening doors of Amashu, so I'm really excited to see how that one turns out. One other glimpse we got in terms of background scenery was of Zhao's Fire Nation fortress, which I think we're looking at in this scene here. And sticking on the theme of Fire Nation, we also got a look at the Fire Lord Ozai's throne. Of course, it's not something we really saw in season 1 of the animated series, so this seems like something Netflix will creatively adapt into their live action version. Moving to the Earth Kingdom, we got a look at the Kyoshi Island, which I'm super happy to see. You can even see a statue of Avatar Kyoshi in the distance. And we did get a look at the Kyoshi Warriors Dojo on Kyoshi Island where they train. A few other things on backgrounds and settings. We got a view of Crescent Island, which if you didn't know is where Roku's temple is located, and we'll talk about what that episode might be in just a moment. We also got a look at the Scorched Forest, where Aang takes refuge during the winter solstice. It's also where Hei Bai resides, which you can kind of see in the background where Aang is meditating. So those are some of the visuals I wanted to talk you through. Let's finish by talking about the episode order and the story of Netflix Avatar The Last Airbender. So this is the full episode list in running order. I'll try to explain the bits of the story that relate to each episode and use clips from the trailer to hopefully make sense of it for you. Before I do that though, it's worth noting something the showrunner Albert Kim said. He said, "We don't start the show the same way the animated series starts." And he kind of says that was a conscious decision because he wants to make it clear that this is a different series to the animated series. And you can also see there he says they sometimes had to unravel the stories and remix the stories in a way that makes sense for serialized drama. One of the background reasons he gave to that was essentially because you've only got 8 episodes in the Netflix series compared to the many episodes you had in the animated series. The good news is though, he said all the writers were fans of the original, which I hope is a good thing because it means they'll want to do the original series justice in this live action adaptation. That does mean episode 1 in this episode list is going to differ slightly though, and I think that's going to be the opening scene that's going to be different. It will show us more about how the 100-Year War started and a little about how the Avatar disappeared. We might get more of a glimpse of Monk Gyatso early on here as well, and rumours are that he could even be involved in this fight scene here. After that chain start, I believe episode 1 will then jump to Sokka and Katara fishing in the river where they'll eventually find Aang and Appa frozen in the sphere. We'll get to see Aang's time in the Southern Water Tribe, plus his face-off against Zuko. I also believe we'll get to see the Southern Air Temple episode within episode 1, and that's where they'll likely introduce Momo to Team Avatar. After that, it will lead them to Kyoshi Island in episode 2, which is appropriately named Warriors. We'll get to meet Suki and the Kyoshi Warriors, as well as Suki's mother, who I mentioned earlier is a new character. Of course, it looks like they will tease Sokka and Suki's relationship, just like we saw in the trailer, and I expect a big fight scene where Zuko and the Fire Nation attack Kyoshi Island, and we see the Kyoshi Warriors along with Team Avatar fighting back. We do know Yvonne Chapman has been cast as Kyoshi, so I expect to either see her in person here, or at least hear her voice giving guidance to Aang. After that, the next episode will take us to Amashu, and we'll get to see King Bumi. As I mentioned, we also know Jet has been cast along with Avatar Roku. Now we do know Ko the Face Stealer has been cast, and according to Night's Edge Media, so is Hei Bai. Given we saw what I think is the Scorched Forest in the trailer, I expect that means we'll see something similar to the animation, with Aang going into the spirit world to calm down Hei Bai. He'll get to meet Ko the Face Stealer, and eventually he'll go and speak to Roku. Now, as I mentioned Jet, it's possible his episode will be combined with June, because the village we see Jet in does look quite similar to the one where June tracks Team Avatar to. Now, Barto hasn't actually been cast, although there is an injured Water Tribe character, meaning they might not emphasize Barto as much in the Netflix series, and instead find a way to combine June and Jet followed by Hei Bai, with all of this taking place around the forest and this village, which could potentially be the village that Jet wants to destroy with the freedom fighters. I also expect Zuko will be making an appearance with Iroh as well. We saw in this clip where they were fighting, it kind of looks like a forest setting, so it's possible all of these things come together in a combined episode. And one other thing I'll add to that is we also saw a shot of Team Avatar released by Netflix of them in a fighting pose. You kind of see Aang here with a serious face and Sokka with his trusty boomerang ready to go. And by the way, just to pick up on that for a second, I feel like the boomerang looks really good. They've definitely taken inspiration from the animation, but maybe given it a few tweaks to make it look more realistic, but also like something that could actually do some damage in a fight. Now, in terms of this overall image, I think the scene does tie in with the whole forest episode if you look at the background, so that means it could definitely involve Jet and potentially June, Zuko and Iroh. One of the characters we haven't talked about yet are Team Azula. We know they've been cast, and from that shot of Azula released by Netflix, it looks like they'll have more of a role in season 1 than they did in the original animation, and that role could involve starting their chase of the Avatar and Zuko early on in season 1. That means it's possible that this Team Avatar pose here and the fighting scene with Zuko and Iroh are actually against Team Azula, so that could be an alternate option of what we're seeing here. Now, after all of that happens, I expect we will see the Winter Solstice part, and I expect Aang will get to speak to Roku by heading to Crescent Island. We'll then move into the Masks episode, which should be quite an obvious one. This one's going to be the Blue Spirit episode, and that's where we'll get to see Zhao in his Fire Nation fortress. And that will then lead us into the final 2 episodes, which will take us to the Northern Water Tribe. Pakku and Yue, among others from the Northern Water Tribe, have been cast, so we can expect Aang and Katara to undergo some waterbending training, and we can also expect Sokka to finally get his Moon Girl. Plus we'll see Aang going into the spirit world to save the Northern Water Tribe. And that should round out season 1 of Netflix Avatar The Last Airbender. Oh, one last thing, the music sounds amazing. It's going to be original music, but it does sound very close to the original animated series. That is pretty much everything we know from official sources on Netflix Avatar The Last Airbender. There should be a full trailer coming soon, definitely this month, maybe in the next week or 2. So obviously keep a lookout on my channel because I will break that down for you. But for now, I hope you're as excited as I am. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you later.